Hip hop, in the same way that rock and roll would educate, inspire, and motivate people, that's what hip hop did in the 80s. And the 80s happened so hip hop could be born. Hip hop gave a voice to the colored people of New York City, the African Americans and some of my Latino brothers and sisters, because the perception was that it was heaven here. You know, every vision was of Studio 54, Rolls Royces, champagne, money, even Hollywood. Hollywood was coming from Hollywood, California to come here to New York City to go to Studio 54. So when people saw it in the media, it looked like everything was all right here. But it was those young brothers, African American brothers and sisters, who told the truth. They say, no, this isn't the truth. What is the truth? Broken glass everywhere. People pissing on the station. No, I just don't care. I can't take the smell. I can't take the noise. Got no money to move out, so I got no choice. Rats in the front room, roaches in the back, junkies in the alley with the baseball bat. I tried to get away, but I couldn't get far because a man with a tow truck reproduced. And then, don't push me, cause I'm close. That's how. That wasn't just a young rap thing. My mother felt like that. My grandmother felt like that. The 9-to-5 people felt. The teachers felt like that. The cops, the police, everybody. Yo, that was the truth of what New York City was, and it came from these young black people from the Bronx who ain't have nothing and just got fed up, but then they found their way out. They found their way out through the arts.
DJ 91.
Hello there, this is DJ 91, back with another deep dive video. I did 2000s hip hop, I did 90s hip hop, and now I'm about to go back another decade and do 80s hip hop. I actually had no intentions whatsoever on talking about an era I totally missed out on. I was born in 1991 for crying out loud, but I've seen some of you old heads commenting in the previous deep dive videos I've done where y'all keep bringing up the 80s, saying that's the best era, that's the real golden era, mentioning guys from the 80s in all freaking caps. I even had a close friend much younger than me actually convince me to do the same thing. I did a poll and all of you who voted were in favor of it. And I was like, you know what? I'll challenge myself and do the 80s. Just gotta lock in, do some research, and hopefully I don't miss on this one. What I do know for sure is that this decade was the early pioneering stages of hip-hop that would pave the way for future legends and Hall of Famers. However, at this time, hip-hop was only seen as a trend, and the industry thought it was something that wouldn't stick around, despite the amount of talent that was emerging at the time. And what I'm simply gonna do is cover all the hip-hop artists from this era who made a name for themselves, with the majority of them coming from New York, which is the birthplace of hip-hop. I'm gonna do a different type of list this time. I'm gonna group all the artists into 3 different tiers: the superstars, the middle class, and the underground, which is all based on how popular they were throughout the decade. But before I go any further, hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. Just 2 clicks, that's all. It won't cost you a thing. This is YouTube, not OnlyFans. It's free to subscribe and watch videos on here. Now, for you Gen Xers and you old heads, I'm gonna try my best to take you down memory lane. Chapter 1, the superstars, and this is in no particular order, by the way. First off, we got Run DMC, a 3-man group from Queens, New York that consists of Joseph Run Simmons, Daryl DMC McDaniels, and Jason Jam Master J Mizell. Upon their formation, they had first signed a deal with Profile Records in the early 80s. By 1984, they dropped their self-titled debut album. It had peaked at number 53 on the Billboard 200 and went gold in 9 months, becoming the first ever hip-hop album to be certified gold, despite not having a mainstream hit. All 4 singles off the album only did well on urban radio. 2 of its singles, It's Like That and Rockbox, both have music videos for them. In 1985, they would quickly drop their second album, King of Rock. It had peaked at number 52 on the Billboard 200, went gold in 4 months, and went platinum a couple years later, becoming the first ever hip-hop album to be certified platinum. This also didn't come with any mainstream hits. The lead single of the same name would end up being the most popular song off the album, and had also helped them gain a bit of traction overseas. After this, Run DMC would continue to carry hip-hop on their backs and dominate in the 80s. In 1986, they would quickly drop their third album, Raising Hell. This would be their mainstream breakthrough as it had peaked at number 3 on the Billboard 200 and within less than a year went triple platinum, becoming their best-selling album. The lead single, My Adidas, became an absolute anthem in the urban market. The second single, Walk This Way, featuring Aerosmith, would end up being a game-changer, remaking the band's original hit song from the 70s by adding their own style to it. This would end up being their biggest song, reaching number 4 on the Hot 100 and became a global smash hit. This was also the very first crossover collab that would set the foundation for future collabs between rap and rock. The third single, You Be Illin', reached number 29 on the Hot 100. The final single, It's Tricky, reached number 57 on the Hot 100. A fun fact about this song: during the COVID-19 pandemic, this song was used for a popular trend on social media called the It's Tricky Challenge, reviving the song and introducing it to a younger generation. In 1988, Run DMC would keep their foot on the gas by dropping their fourth album, Tougher Than Leather. Although the critics felt like it didn't meet the standard of their last three albums, it was still a commercial success. It peaked at number 9 on the Billboard 200 and went platinum in 2 months. The lead single, Run's House, was well received on the urban charts. The second single, Mary Mary, which is a cover version of a Michael Nesmith song from the 60s, had charted on the Hot 100, reaching number 75. Run DMC would start to decline after this once the decade finished, but cemented themselves as prominent hip-hop pioneers, as well as the first ever hip-hop act to achieve mainstream success. I also had the chance of seeing one of the members, DMC, on stage a few summers ago at a local music festival. It was a dope show. It was great to see him on stage. Next up, we got the Beastie Boys, a trio from New York City that consists of Ad Rock, MCA, and Mike D. Before blowing up in hip-hop, they first started doing hardcore punk, which is a form of rock music. In 1982, they had released their first ever project called Pollywog Stew, while signed to an indie label called Rat Cage Records. The following year, they would release a double-sided 12-inch single called Cookie Puss, with 2 tracks on side A and 2 more tracks on side B, which helped them gain some local buzz. One of the tracks of the same name was also based on a prank call to an ice cream shop. This is also considered to be their first ever hip-hop recording. After this, Beastie Boys would switch the style up and start incorporating some rapping into their music. They would then hire a DJ who happened to be the one and only Rick Rubin. At the time, he was an NYU student. He would then start producing for the group soon after. In 1984, Rick Rubin and Russell Simmons would start up Def Jam Recordings and then sign the group to their label. That same year with the label, they would drop a new single called Rock Hard. But the record was scrapped due to an uncleared sample from an AC/DC song. But that didn't slow down the group. In 1985, they would drop another single called She's On It, which appeared on a soundtrack for a movie called Crush Groove. This would help them gain more of a following and help them gain some traction overseas, charting in a few European countries. That same year, they would get to go on tour with Madonna, who was one of the biggest pop stars in the world at the time. They would be added as a supporting act for the Virgin Tour. The following year, Beastie Boys would drop their debut album, License to Ill. The album was a slow burner at first, but within months would rise up the charts and top the Billboard 200, becoming the first ever hip-hop album to go number 1. Within less than a year, the album went quadruple platinum. Songs like Hold It Now Hit It, Paul Revere, and The New Style did well on urban radio. But it was the hit single, You Gotta Fight for Your Right to Party, which became their mainstream breakthrough, reaching number 7 on the Hot 100. This was the spark plug for the album's increase in sales. Another single which was released afterwards, called Brass Monkey, would also appear on the Hot 100, reaching number 48. But despite all of this success, Beastie Boys would end up leaving Def Jam, and it was for 2 reasons: the lack of creative control and shady business. While touring for the album, the group reportedly wasn't receiving any royalties from the record sales. The group would sue Def Jam for unpaid royalties, totaling up to $2.5 million, while the label would countersue the group for not putting out another album by the end of the following year, leading to a messy contractual dispute. Beastie Boys would become free agents looking for another label. They would end up signing with Capitol Records. In 1989, they would drop their second album, Pa's Boutique. However, it had underperformed compared to their previous effort. It would peak at number 14 on the Billboard 200 and went gold in 2 months before it ran out of gas. It was a major flop at the time and wasn't promoted enough by the label. However, over the years, the album has been critically acclaimed as their best work due to its top-notch production, innovative sampling, solid lyrical content, as well as the blending of funk, soul, rock, and hip-hop all mixed together. The lead single off the album, Hey Ladies, was the only single to chart on the Hot 100, reaching number 36. After this, the Beastie Boys would go on to have another great run in the 90s, and were even able to stick around in the 2000s. Unfortunately, one of its members, MCA, would pass away in 2012 due to salivary gland cancer. The group had released their final album a year before his death. They would immediately disband and stop doing shows, refusing to continue as just a duo. But ultimately, they had cemented themselves as one of the greatest hip-hop groups of all time. And on a personal note, this is actually my favorite hip-hop group ever. Next up, we got LL Cool J, who's been self-proclaimed as the most important rapper in hip-hop history. Born and raised in Bayshore, New York, LL Cool J first bursted onto the scene as a teenager. With the support of his family, he was able to record some demo tracks. He sent them out to different labels, but only one would choose him. That label would be the newly formed Def Jam Recordings. One of the Beastie Boys who had heard LL Cool J's demo handed it to Rick Rubin, which led to LL Cool J getting a record deal. In 1985, LL Cool J would drop his critically acclaimed debut album, Radio, at the age of 17. The album had slowly risen up the charts, peaking at number 46 on the Billboard 200. The album had went gold in 5 months, and 3 years after its release would go platinum. The most notable track off the album was a song called Rock the Bells, which did well on urban radio. Decades later, LL Cool J would curate a hip-hop music festival and a media platform based on the name of the song. In 1987, LL Cool J would drop his second album, Bigger and Deffer. This would be his mainstream breakthrough as it had risen up the charts, peaking at number 3 on the Billboard 200 and went double platinum in a matter of 6 months. On this album, he would lean towards more female-friendly songs and more of a commercial type of sound. The lead single, I'm Bad, would be his first Hot 100 appearance, reaching number 84. The second single, I Need Love, reached number 14 on the Hot 100. In 1988, LL Cool J would drop another single, Going Back to Cali, which was included on a soundtrack for a movie called Less Than Zero. The song reached number 31 on the Hot 100. By the end of the decade, LL Cool J would drop his third album, Walking with the Panther, in 1989. It had peaked at number 6 on the Billboard 200 and went platinum in 2 months. The lead single, I'm That Type of Guy, reached number 15 on the Hot 100. After this, LL Cool J would go on a generational run, continuing to dominate in the 90s and was able to keep up with everyone in the 2000s. He would also branch off into acting as well. In 2021, he would be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Even up until 2024, he was still musically active, ending his hiatus by re-signing to Def Jam and dropping his latest album called The Force, which is his 14th album. It had debuted at number 40 on the Billboard 200, making him the oldest rapper to appear on the chart at the age of 56. Also, making him the first ever rapper to chart in 5 different decades. The album also received positive reviews from the critics, showing hip-hop fans that he still got it. Next up, we got DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, a DJ/rapper duo from West Philly, with the Fresh Prince of course being none other than the one and only Will Smith. But this was way before his Hollywood days, and way before he had an acting career. Back in the 80s, Will Smith was only known as a rapper. How him and Jazzy Jeff first met was at a house party performance where the two were introduced to each other by a mutual friend. With Jazzy Jeff set to perform at the house party, his hype man was running very late and would end up missing the performance. Will Smith would fill in as a hype man to help out Jazzy Jeff. Afterwards, the two felt like they had a very strong chemistry. The group would continue to work together. Eventually, they would sign a deal with a local indie label called Word Records. In 1986, they would drop their debut single, Girls Ain't Nothing But Trouble, which was a sleeper hit at the time. This would be included on their debut album, Rock the House, which came out the same year. This album would get them some attention by major labels. They would sign a deal with Jive Records. The album was then re-released by the label the following year, and would start to appear on the charts, peaking at number 83 on the Billboard 200 and went gold nearly 2 years after its release. The single, Girls Ain't Nothing But Trouble, would start to make some noise, appearing on the Hot 100, reaching number 57. This would give them some commercial momentum going into their second album. In 1988, the duo would drop their all-time classic second album, He's the DJ, I'm the Rapper. This would end up being their mainstream breakthrough as the album had risen up the charts, peaking at number 4 on the Billboard 200, and within 6 months the album went double platinum, making it their best-selling album. The second single, Parents Just Don't Understand, would put them on the map, reaching number 12 on the Hot 100. The follow-up single, A Nightmare on My Street, would reach number 15 on the Hot 100. But despite its success, the song was hit with some legal backlash due to the title of the name. It was similarly titled as the TV movie series A Nightmare on Elm Street. TV and film production company New Line Cinema, who were the copyright holders for this series, would end up suing the duo's label for copyright infringement. It would be settled out of court. A music video had been filmed for the single but was forced to be purged and never to be released due to the lawsuit. However, one copy of the music video ended up being salvaged and was released on YouTube 30 years later, allowing the world to finally see the music video for the first time. To wrap up the decade, the duo would drop their third album, And in This Corner, in 1989. This album wouldn't do nearly as well, as it had only peaked at number 39 on the Billboard 200 and went gold. The lead single, I Think I Can Beat Mike Tyson, was the only song to appear on the Hot 100, only reaching number 58. After this, Will Smith's acting career would take off with a new sitcom called The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. The duo would have a bit of a resurgence in the early 90s and drop 2 more albums before splitting up. Will Smith would then become one of the biggest actors in the world after his first movie appearance in the mid-90s. He would then make a huge comeback as a solo artist in the late 90s, selling way more records and putting out way more hits. By the 2000s, he would start to fade out musically, but continue to dominate in Hollywood, putting up huge numbers in the box office and winning numerous awards and accolades along the way for his work. Also, much of the newer generation had no idea Will Smith used to be a rapper. Even now, Will Smith has just started to become consistently active in music again, dropping a new album in 2025 and continuing to do shows around the world. Next up, we got Tone Loc. At first, I thought it was Tony Locke. My bad. A West Coast rapper from LA who was able to blow up and make a name for himself as a superstar rapper by the tail end of the decade. He had first put himself out there by performing at numerous clubs across the city of LA, and was also rapping for a local hip-hop radio station called K-Day, which helped him gain a following. This would lead to him getting a record deal with a local indie label called Delicious Vinyl. In 1989, he would drop his debut album, Loked After Dark. 3 months after its release, it would rise up the charts and top the Billboard 200. This would end up being a milestone in hip-hop history, as he became the first ever solo rapper to have a #1 album, and the first solo rapper to have their debut album go #1. It would go double platinum in 4 months. The lead single, Wild Thing, was his mainstream breakthrough before the album's release, reaching number 2 on the Hot 100. The follow-up single, Funky Cold Medina, reached number 3 on the Hot 100. After this, Tone Loc would fail to replicate any of this success in the 90s, as his second album would end up flopping and would also end up being his last one. But he would keep himself busy by getting into acting, appearing in numerous TV shows, sitcoms, and movies, as well as some voice acting. As of now, he's still on stage doing shows, touring off his old classic hits. Next up, we got Young MC, who was born in the UK and moved to the States with his family at the age of 3. They would end up settling in New York City. There, he would grow up and aspire to become a rapper. While studying at USC, he had received a phone call from the founders of Delicious Vinyl through a friend connection. They had asked him to spit some rhymes over the phone. He had rapped about 5 verses and left a great impression on them. Within a week, a recording contract was mailed to his dorm room. Before signing, he had some friends at the school who were law students to review the contract since he couldn't afford a lawyer at the time. He would end up signing the contract. He would then blow up by the tail end of the 80s upon getting a record deal. In 1989, he would drop his critically acclaimed debut album, Stone Cold Rhymin'. It had peaked at number 9 on the Billboard 200 and went platinum in 3 months. The lead single, Bust a Move, was a global smash hit, reaching number 7 on the Hot 100, becoming his biggest song. The second single, The Principal's Office, reached number 33 on the Hot 100. The third single, I Come Off, reached number 75 on the Hot 100. After this, Young MC would end up leaving Delicious Vinyl due to creative differences, but would end up going on a decline as he would no longer achieve the same success. He would continue his career with Capitol Records and drop 2 more albums for them in the early 90s before ultimately going independent afterwards. As of now, he's been out there doing shows, performing his old classic hits. And to wrap up the superstars list, we got the Fat Boys, a trio from New York City that consists of Cool Rock Ski, Buff Love, and Prince Marky D. Known for their unique style of beatboxing in their songs as well as their comedic nature. They were arguably the hardest working hip-hop group of the 80s, putting out more albums than almost everyone else for the entire decade. They had first signed a deal with Kama Sutra Records in the early 80s. In 1984, they would drop their self-titled debut album. It peaked at number 48 on the Billboard 200, and within a year of its release, it went gold. 2 of its singles, Jailhouse Rap and Can You Feel It, both did well on urban radio. In 1985, they would quickly drop their second album, The Fat Boys Are Back. It had peaked at number 63 on the Billboard 200 and went gold within a year. In 1986, they would drop their third album, Big and Beautiful, which ended up being a commercial flop, peaking at number 62 on the Billboard 200 and failed to even reach gold status. After that, the group would then switch labels, signing to Polydor Records. They would then release their fourth album, Crush It, in 1987. This would end up being their mainstream breakthrough, as it had peaked at number 8 on the Billboard 200 and went platinum in 4 months. The hit single, Wipeout, featuring the Beach Boys, which was a cover version of an instrumental song by the Safaris, became their biggest song, reaching number 12 on the Hot 100. The song also did well internationally. In 1988, they would drop their fifth album, Coming Back Hard Again. It peaked at number 33 on the Billboard 200 and went gold in 2 months. The lead single, The Twist, which was a cover version of a Hank Ballard song from the 50s, reached number 16 on the Hot 100. The song also did very well in Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. To finish off the decade, they would drop their sixth album, On and On, in 1989, which would end up being a commercial failure, only peaking at number 175 on the Billboard 200. This marked the beginning of their decline. After this, the Fat Boys would drop one more album before breaking up in the early 90s, but 2 of its members would pass away due to poor health. In 1995, Buff Love passed away at the very young age of 28 due to a heart attack. At the time, he was morbidly obese, weighing over 400 pounds, which led to his death. Prince Marky D would end up living way longer, but in 2021, he would pass away 1 day before his 53rd birthday, also due to a heart-related illness. Chapter 2, The Middle Class. First up, we got Boogie Down Productions, an East Coast hip-hop group from Bronx, New York, with KRS-One, Scott LaRock, and D-Nice as the founding members of the group. Outside of their music, they've been well known for their contribution to the Bridge Wars, a hip-hop rivalry between the South Bronx and Queensbridge, with both sides battling over which side was the birthplace of hip-hop. Led by KRS-One, who was the frontman in the group, he would take charge in the beef against the Juice Crew, which was a collective from Queensbridge. 2 of its members, Marley Marl and MC Shan, created a track called The Bridge, stating that hip-hop came from their side, but KRS-One would respond to them with 2 tracks called South Bronx and the all-time classic, The Bridge Is Over, which was enough to give the South Bronx the victory in this battle. Getting back to the music now, the group was signed to B-Boy Records and would drop their critically acclaimed debut album, Criminal Minded, in 1987. Although it didn't do well commercially, it made some noise in the underground and got great reviews by the critics as a golden age classic. The album paints a picture of what goes on in the violent streets of South Bronx. This album had also contained the 2 tracks that KRS-One responded with in the Bridge Wars. Before their second album, the group would sign a new deal with Jive Records. But before they got to record for their second album, tragedy struck, with one of its members, Scott LaRock, losing his life to gun violence after being struck in the head by a bullet. He was only 25 years old. The group would continue, but would then change their lyrical content. They would drop their second album, By All Means Necessary, in 1988. Both the title and the album cover is a reference to Malcolm X's well-known phrase, as well as an iconic photo of him peeping through a window curtain while holding a firearm. This album would lean towards a more conscious and political message. The whole album was entirely written and produced by KRS-One. It had peaked at number 75 on the Billboard 200 and went gold 19 months after its release. The album was also critically acclaimed. One of its singles, Stop the Violence, was a call to action which sparked a movement to address the violence happening within the hip-hop community at the time. To wrap up the decade, BDP would drop their third album, Ghetto Music, The Blueprint of Hip-Hop, in 1989. Once again with KRS-One writing and producing everything for the album, making BDP look like a one-man group at this point. The album peaked at number 36 on the Billboard 200 and went gold in 2 months. After this, the group would continue their run in the early 90s by dropping 2 more albums before KRS-One began his solo career once he started releasing music under his own name, and was able to stay relevant throughout the remainder of the 90s. To this day, he's been celebrated as a prominent conscious figure in hip-hop history. Next up, we got Big Daddy Kane, coming straight out of New York City. After networking with some local aspiring MCs and DJs, he would get in touch with producer Molly Mall's manager and sign a deal with his label Cold Chillin' Records, which would help jumpstart his career in the late 80s. In 1988, he would drop his debut album, Long Live the Kang. It had peaked at number 116 on the Billboard 200. Despite its low chart performance, the album went gold 14 months after its release. The lead single off the album, Ain't No Half Steppin', had put him on the map as it did well on the urban charts. In 1989, he would quickly drop his second album, It's a Big Daddy Thing. It peaked at number 33 on the Billboard 200 and went gold in 2 months, becoming his fastest-selling album. The lead single, Smooth Operator, became a huge hit on the urban charts, topping the rap singles chart and nearly cracking the top 10 of the R&B hip-hop singles chart. By this time, Big Daddy Kane had reached his peak. After this, he was still able to stay relevant in the 90s, appealing to a more underground audience. Outside of music, he would also get into other ventures such as acting and modeling. To this day, he's earned a solid reputation as one of the most influential and skilled rappers ever. Next up, we got Biz Markie, another NYC native. Just want to say, rest in peace to this legend since he's no longer here with us. Just like Big Daddy Kane, Biz Markie would also get a deal with Cold Chillin' Records to start up his rap career by the late 80s. In 1988, he would drop his debut album, Going Off, which didn't really do anything as it peaked at number 90 on the Billboard 200 and failed to reach gold status. The following year, he would achieve some commercial success with his sophomore album, The Biz Never Sleeps. It peaked at number 66 on the Billboard 200 and went gold in 6 months, solely based off the mega hit single, Just a Friend, which reached number 9 on the Hot 100. After this, Biz Markie's rap career would decline in the 90s, but he would easily transition to becoming a full-time DJ, playing for lots of high-profile events. Next up, we got Kid and Play, also coming out of NYC, a duo that consists of Christopher Reed, who goes by Kid, and Christopher Martin, who goes by Play. They had first got on by signing a deal with Select Records. In 1988, they would drop their debut album, Too Hype. It had peaked at number 96 on the Billboard 200 and managed to reach gold status in a matter of 6 months. 3 of its 5 singles did well on the urban charts, with songs like Getting Funky, Rollin' with Kid and Play, and Too Hype. After this, the duo would enjoy some more commercial success in the early 90s and drop 2 more albums before splitting up for good. The duo would also appear in popular films such as House Party 1, House Party 2, and Class Act. Both members would also continue their acting careers individually. To this day, the duo remains good friends and have continued to make public appearances together, whether through an interview or through an onstage performance. Next up, we got Salt and Peppa, also coming out of NYC, a female trio that consists of Cheryl Salt James, Sandra Peppa Denton, and Deidre Roper, who now goes by DJ Spinderella. Known as the first ladies of hip-hop, they established themselves as hip-hop pioneers and had first arrived on the scene in the mid-80s. Shortly after their formation and getting a local buzz off a song they recorded, they would get a record deal signing to Next Plateau Entertainment. In 1986, they would drop their debut album, Hot, Cool, and Vicious. Months after its release, it had peaked at number 26 on the Billboard 200. The album went gold in 13 months and went platinum in 15 months, making them the first ever female hip-hop act to have a gold and platinum selling album. Track number 1 off the album would end up being the all-time classic hit single, Push It. This song would break them into the mainstream, as it had reached number 19 on the Hot 100. The song also did very well internationally. It was a massive hit in Canada, Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. This song was a spark plug for the album's commercial success. In 1988, they would drop their second album, Assault with a Deadly Pepper. It had peaked at number 38 on the Billboard 200 and went gold in 5 months, despite having lesser performing singles. The most popular song off the album was a single called Shake Your Thing, featuring a go-go/funk band called Experience Unlimited, EU for short. The song didn't chart on the Hot 100, but did very well on the urban chart, reaching the top 5 of the R&B hip-hop singles chart. The song was also able to chart in Europe and Australia. After this, Salt and Peppa would continue their run and reach their peak in the 90s, becoming one of the biggest hip-hop groups of the decade. They would drop their final album in 97. In the 2000s, both Sandra and Cheryl would briefly take the plunge into reality TV. DJ Spinderella would leave the group, but both Sandra and Cheryl would continue to do shows together under the group's name. And in 2025, the group would be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Next up, we got NWA, Niggas with Attitude, a legendary six-man group from Compton, California that consists of Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, MC Ren, Eazy-E, DJ Yella, and Arabian Prince. Prior to their come-up, they had dropped a compilation album called NWA and the Posse, an underground West Coast project that was entirely produced by Dr. Dre and Arabian Prince, which featured some other hip-hop acts. It was released on a local indie label called Macola Records. A couple tracks off this album would help them make some local noise in the West Coast hip-hop scene. Those tracks would end up being Boys in the Hood and Panic Zone. That same year, they would be discovered by music manager Jerry Heller. Both him and Eazy-E would start up Ruthless Records and sign the group to the label with major label distribution by Priority Records. In January 1989, they would drop their debut album, Straight Outta Compton. At the time, highly controversial due to its rough, aggressive, bold, and explicit lyrical content, but in retrospect would end up being an all-time classic. It had peaked at number 37 on the Billboard 200, went gold in 3 months, and went platinum in 7 months, despite the lack of radio play they were getting. 2 songs off the album, Gangsta Gangsta and Express Yourself, were both released as singles, which did moderately well in the street market. Another song off the album called F the Police, which was a protest song about police brutality and racial profiling, was so controversial back then that the group's label had received a letter by the FBI in which they expressed their disapproval for the song's lyrics, but would later become a transcendent anthem over the decades as a resistant message to the recent cases and injustices of police brutality. In line with the group, Eazy-E had dropped his debut solo album, Easy Does It, a couple months before Straight Outta Compton. It was released in November 1988. The album had peaked at number 41 on the Billboard 200, went gold in 3 months, and went platinum in 7 months, with fellow NWA members helping to write and produce the album. One of the singles, We Want Easy, featuring Dr. Dre and MC Ren, did moderately well on the urban charts. By the end of the decade, Ice Cube would leave the group and go solo due to his foresight of shady business going on with Jerry Heller. The group would still continue in the early 90s and drop another album, which despite going number 1, would end up being their last, after Ice Cube destroyed the group with his No Vaseline response. Everyone else would continue to go solo. Eazy-E would unfortunately pass away in 1995 due to AIDS. Ice Cube and Dr. Dre would emerge as hip-hop icons. The group would have a huge resurgence in 2015 with the Straight Outta Compton biopic. The album Straight Outta Compton would re-enter the charts and reach a new peak of number 4 on the Billboard 200 and would become a triple platinum selling album. Eazy-E's debut solo album would also re-enter the chart, peaking at number 32 on the Billboard 200, and in 2016 they would be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Next up, we got epmd, an East Coast duo from New York that consists of Eric Sermon and Parrish Mike Doc. They were able to get an underground buzz in the late 80s. With that, they got managed early on by Russell Simmons. Under his management, they were able to tour with bigger hip-hop acts such as Run DMC, Public Enemy, and DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. The duo would then finally get a record deal, signing with Sleeping Bag Records. In 1988, they would drop their critically acclaimed debut album, Strictly Business. It had peaked at number 80 on the Billboard 200 and went gold in 5 months. The most notable track off the album was a song called You Gots to Chill, which was released as one of the singles. The song did very well on urban radio. In 1989, they would quickly drop their second album, Unfinished Business. It had peaked at number 53 on the Billboard 200 and went gold in 3 months. The lead single, So What You Saying, would end up being the most popular song off the album, doing well on the urban charts. The duo would continue their run in the early 90s, dropping 2 more albums before breaking up. The duo had fallen out over financial disagreements and distrust after Parrish had his house broken into, where one of the suspects alleged that Eric Sermon had paid them for the crime. The two would go their separate ways and start their solo careers. Eventually, the duo would reconcile and reunite in the late 90s, continuing to put out more music together. Next up, we got Slick Rick. Known for his storytelling rap, British English delivery, as well as his signature eye patch which he wore as a result of an eye injury he suffered as a toddler. Slick Rick was born in London, UK, and immigrated to the States with his family at the age of 11. They would end up settling in Bronx, New York. There he would continue to grow up and eventually aspire to become a rapper. How he first got into the rap game was at a talent showcase where he first met Dougie Fresh. After making a good impression, he would be a part of Doug's Get Fresh crew. At the time, he went by MC Ricky D. With the group, he was featured on a couple tracks which both made some noise and got some widespread radio play. This would help him get discovered by Russell Simmons and would sign him to his label Def Jam. In 1988, he would drop his critically acclaimed debut album, The Great Adventures of Slick Rick. It had peaked at number 31 on the Billboard 200, went gold in 4 months, and went platinum in 11 months. All 3 of its singles, Teenage Love, Children's Story, and Hey Young World, all did well on urban radio and helped the album sell well. After this, Slick Rick would continue to drop a few more albums in the 90s under Def Jam before going on an indefinite hiatus. He would eventually make a comeback in 2025 and drop his 5th album at the age of 60, showing no signs of slowing down. Next up, we got Two Live Crew, a four-man group from Miami, Florida that consists of Mr. Mix, Fresh Kid Ice, Brother Marquise, and Luke Skywalker, with Mr. Mix being the DJ of the group and Luke being both the manager of the group who would also help with the production, leaving Fresh Kid Ice and Brother Marquise as the only rappers of the group. Known for their sexually explicit rap lyrics, they were still able to make some noise in the mid to late 80s while also pioneering the Miami-based genre of Southern hip-hop. Upon their formation, the group would sign to Luke's label, Luke Records. In 1986, they would drop their debut album, The Two Live Crew Is What We Are. The album initially wasn't a commercial success as it had only peaked at number 124 on the Billboard 200 with no hit singles. However, the album managed to reach gold status a couple years after its release, as their popularity slowly began to grow. In 1988, they would drop their second album, Move Something. It had peaked at number 68 on the Billboard 200 and went gold in 7 months. Both of its singles, Move Something and Do Whodini, were able to get some airplay on urban radio. In 1989, the group would reach their peak with the release of their third album, As Nasty As They Wanna Be. It had peaked at number 29 on the Billboard 200, went gold in 5 months, and went platinum in 8 months, becoming their best-selling album. The lead single, Me So Horny, would end up being their mainstream breakthrough, reaching number 26 on the Hot 100, and also performed very well overseas, charting in New Zealand and did even better in Europe. However, despite the success of the album, it came with a lot of controversy. The following year, the group was being prosecuted by the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Florida. The district judge had ruled the album as legally obscene, which had never happened before in the history of music, with an album being ruled as such a thing. The group was even arrested for performing the album at a strip club. By the time the album had already sold 1 million copies across the country, it was deemed illegal to sell in stores. During a court trial, a few radio stations continued to support the group by playing their music. The whole situation also started a protest in the industry against music censorship, advocating for the artistic freedom of speech, led by British rock musician David Bowie. Thanks to all of the support behind them, the group would then be acquitted of the obscenity charges. This would then start a publishing rule of parental advisory stickers being added onto the front cover of the albums that were inappropriate for minors to listen to. After the decade, Two Live Crew would continue to enjoy some more success in the early 90s before flaming out and eventually breaking up by the late 90s. As of now, the only member of the group is Mr. Mix, who still tours under the name. I was still able to catch him on stage a few summers ago at a local music festival. Next up, we got MC Hammer. Coming out of Oakland, California, he had managed to jumpstart his career in the mid-80s. How he first got on was by starting an independent label called Busted Records. He had borrowed tens of thousands of dollars from a couple MLB players on the Oakland A's to help fund his label, selling music out of his basement and out of his car. In 1986, he would release his debut album, Feel My Power, which had sold 60,000 copies with the help of some local distribution. Also, due to MC Hammer's relentless work ethic, by putting himself out there and heavily promoting the record. With this local buzz, he started getting offers from major labels. He had declined most of them, but would eventually agree to a multi-album deal with Capitol Records, along with a $1.7 million advance. In 1988, MC Hammer would drop his second album, Let's Get It Started, which also served as his major label debut. It had peaked at number 31 on the Billboard 200 and went platinum in 10 months. All three of its singles, Pump It Up, Turn This Mother Out, and They Put It in the Mix, had performed very well on both urban radio and on the dance charts. After this decade, MC Hammer would immediately start to dominate the early 90s with 2 multi-platinum selling albums, putting out hit after hit. He would then start to decline midway through the 90s. Over the years, he's continued to do shows every now and then. Even now in his 60s, he's still got the moves. Next up, we got Third Base, a 3-man group from New York City that consists of MC Search, Pete Nice, and DJ Richie Rich. Although they had a very short run together, they were able to make a name for themselves by the tail end of the decade. Upon their formation, they had signed a deal with Def Jam. In 1989, they would drop their critically acclaimed debut album, The Cactus Album. It peaked at number 55 on the Billboard 200 and went gold in 5 months. 3 of its singles, Step Into the AM, The Gas Face, and Brooklyn Queens, did well in the urban market and were able to get played overseas, charting in New Zealand and the UK. After this, the group would drop one more album in 1991 before splitting up for good, with each member pursuing their own personal endeavors. Next up, we got Eric B. and Rakim, a legendary DJ/rapper duo from the East Coast, coming straight out of Long Island, New York. How they first met was through a talent search conducted by Eric B. called New York's Top MC. At the time, Eric B. was working as a DJ for a local radio station. Eric B. was looking for a rapper who can complement his style of turntabling. Rakim would submit a response and would be chosen. The two would work together under the tutelage of Marley Marl and record in his home studio. They would first come out with a song called Eric B. is President, which was released in 1986 as their debut single on an indie label called Zakia Records. Upon release, the song would do moderately well on the urban charts. Russell Simmons would end up hearing the single. After this, he would facilitate a record deal for them, getting them signed to Island Records. They would then get to record in a professional studio for their debut album. In 1987, they would drop the all-time classic and critically acclaimed Paid in Full. It had peaked at number 58 on the Billboard 200 and went gold in 5 months. The second single, I Ain't No Joke, would end up being their highest charting single off the album, peaking within the top 40 of the R&B hip-hop singles chart. The fifth single, which shares the album title, didn't do as well on the European charts, but had an EDM remix which helped the song chart in Europe and New Zealand. In 1988, the duo would quickly drop their second album, Follow the Leader. By this time, they would switch labels, signing to MCA Records. The album peaked at number 22 on the Billboard 200 and went gold in 2 months. The lead single of the same name received high airplay on urban radio, charting in the top 20 of the R&B hip-hop singles chart. After this, the duo would stick around in the early 90s and drop 2 more albums before splitting up. By the late 90s, Rakim would continue his career as a solo artist, enjoying a brief resurgence. He would continue to keep busy by doing shows. Next up, we got Public Enemy. Coming out of the East Coast, New York to be exact, at the time was a 4-man group anchored by its 2 MCs, Chuck D and Flavor Flav, with Terminator X being the DJ and Professor Griff being the Minister of Information. Upon their formation, they would get a record deal with Def Jam. In 1987, they would drop their debut album, Yo Bum Rush the Show. Although the album didn't do well and was a commercial failure, was still able to make some noise in the underground. It had peaked at number 124 on the Billboard 200. In 1988, they would drop their critically acclaimed second album, It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. With this album, they would lean towards a more politic and socially conscious message in their lyrics. Despite all of that, the album would still sell well. It had peaked at number 42 on the Billboard 200, went gold in 3 months, and went platinum in 13 months. The lead single, Rebel Without a Pause, was able to get played in Europe, charting at number 37 on the UK singles chart, and was also included on a soundtrack for a movie called Less Than Zero. The second single, Bring the Noise, gave them some considerable airplay on urban radio for the first time. The third single, Don't Believe the Hype, would end up being the most popular song off the album, charting within the top 20 of the R&B hip-hop singles chart. After this, Public Enemy would continue to have a stellar run in the early 90s, putting out a couple more classic albums that would end up going platinum. By the mid-90s, they would start to decline in popularity, but they would still remain active and continue to put out more albums over the course of the years. Even as they got up in age, they even put out a new album in 2025. Even in their 60s, they still got the bars and refused to retire. Next up, we got Heavy D and the Boys, a 4-man group from New York spearheaded by rapper Heavy D, with the other 3 members being 2 backup dancers and 1 DJ/producer. Upon getting discovered, they would sign a deal with Uptown Records. In 1986, they would drop their debut single, Mr. Big Stuff. The song first got them some considerable rotation on urban radio. This will be included on their 1987 debut album, Living Large. It had peaked at number 92 on the Billboard 200. Although it failed to reach gold status, it was still just the beginning for the group. By the end of the decade, they would drop their second album, Big Time. This album would end up being a commercial success, peaking at number 19 on the Billboard 200, went gold in 2 months, and went platinum in 5 months. 3 of its singles, We Got Our Own Thing, Somebody For Me, and Girls They Love Me, performed very well on the urban charts. In the 90s, Heavy D and the Boys would continue to ascend and have a mainstream breakthrough, putting out more hits and more gold and platinum selling albums. By the latter part of the decade, Heavy D would go solo and put out 1 more big album before going on a decline. By this time, he had already gotten into acting as well, making multiple movie and TV show appearances for the remainder of his life. Next up, we got Rob Bass and DJ Easy Rock, a duo from Harlem, New York. Upon their formation, they had first put out an underground single called DJ Interview. This would soon be enough for them to get a record deal. They would sign with Profile Records by the late 80s. In 1988, they would drop their classic debut album, It Takes Two. It had peaked at number 31 on the Billboard 200, went gold in 2 months, and went platinum in 9 months. The lead single of the same name would be their mainstream breakthrough before the album's release, reaching number 36 on the Hot 100. The third and final single, Joy and Pain, reached number 58 on the Hot 100. However, the duo would end up splitting up after this. It was a combination of reasons for the split. DJ Easy Rock had some undisclosed personal issues going on in his life. The two just couldn't see eye to eye, and outside noise suggested that their album would be a tough act to follow. Therefore, the duo went their separate ways. By the end of the decade, Rob Bass would drop his solo debut album, The Incredible Bass, in 1989, while still signed to Profile Records. And of course, the album didn't do as well, peaking at number 50 on the Billboard 200, but still managed to reach gold status despite having lesser performing singles. After this, the duo had reunited for 1 more album in 1994, but it was a major flop and failed to do anything. This would end up being their last. DJ Easy Rock would unfortunately pass away in 2014 due to diabetes. As of now, Rob Bass would continue to do shows as a solo act. Next up, we got De La Soul, a 3-man group from Long Island, New York that consists of Foster Nuos, Maceo, and True Goy the Dove. Upon their formation, they had signed a deal with Tommy Boy Records and were able to emerge on the hip-hop scene right before the 80s finish. In 1989, they would drop their critically acclaimed debut album, 3 Feet High and Rising. At the time, it wasn't a huge commercial success, as it had peaked at number 24 on the Billboard 200 and went gold in 4 months. The album has received accolades over the years and has been dubbed a hip-hop masterpiece and one of the best rap albums of all time, contributing to the evolution of jazz rap and alternative hip-hop. The album would stand the test of time as it had gone platinum by the year 2000. And in 2023, after the tragic death of one of its members, True Goy the Dove, the album would re-enter the chart and reach a new peak of number 15 on the Billboard 200 in the streaming era, 34 years after its release, showing the longevity of a great album and how it can last for generations no matter what era it came out in. One of its singles, Me, Myself, and I, was their mainstream breakthrough, reaching number 34 on the Hot 100 and did very well overseas, charting in a few European countries. The follow-up single, Say No Go, while it only did well on US urban radio, did even better internationally, as it ended up being a top 10, top 20 hit in both the UK and the Netherlands. After this, the group would continue to make history. Although the commercial success wasn't quite there, they were still able to be a transcendent hip-hop act throughout multiple decades. They would reach their peak in the 90s, stick around in the 2000s, go on a long hiatus and make a surprise comeback in the 2010s. Even after Trugoy the Dove's death, the group still currently has plans of dropping a new album before 2025 finishes. Next up, we got Kurtis Blow. Coming straight out of New York City, Kurtis Blow was literally the first ever rapper to make it big. In 1979, he had signed a deal with Mercury Records, making him the first ever rapper to sign with a major label. In 1980, he had dropped his self-titled debut album. It had peaked at number 71 on the Billboard 200. Off this album was a hit single called The Breaks. It had reached number 87 on the Hot 100 and was certified gold, making it the first ever gold certified rap song. It had also did well overseas, charting higher in Germany, the UK, and New Zealand. After this, Kurtis Blow would drop his second album, Deuce, in 1981. It had peaked at number 137 on the Billboard 200. In 1982, he had dropped his third album, Tough, which peaked at number 167 on the Billboard 200. In 1983, he would drop an EP called Party Time. Off the EP was a single of the same name that did well on urban radio. In 1984, he would drop his fourth album, Ego Trip. It had peaked at number 83 on the Billboard 200. Off the album, Kurtis Blow would end his dry spell with another hit single called Basketball, which reached number 71 on the Hot 100, making it his highest charting single. In 1985, he would drop his fifth album, America. It had peaked at number 153 on the Billboard 200. One of the singles, If I Ruled the World, did very well on the urban charts and did well in both the UK and New Zealand. In 1986, he would drop his sixth album, Kingdom Blow. It had peaked at number 196 on the Billboard 200. One of the singles, I'm Chillin', did well in the urban market and appeared on the UK singles chart. This will be his last ever charted single. In 1988, Kurtis Blow would drop his seventh and final album, Backed by Popular Demand, which failed to appear on the Billboard 200. However, Kurtis Blow's emergence set the foundation for hip-hop acts ahead of him to succeed in the mainstream. Later in life, Kurtis Blow would retire from music and become an ordained minister as the founder of the hip-hop church in Harlem. He would also continue to travel around the world and do shows. Next up, we got Ice-T, who was known as the pioneer of gangster rap. He originally came from the East Coast, but would then be situated in the West Coast at a young age. He was born and raised in New Jersey, but had become an orphan child after both of his parents passed away. He was then sent to Los Angeles to live with one of his aunties so that he can be taken care of. Growing up in LA, he would aspire to become an entertainer. He had also once served in the army after high school for a few years. After leaving the army, he had become interested in hip-hop music and would start rapping. He had participated in an open mic competition held by Kurtis Blow, which he ended up winning. After that, he would get in touch with some producers and start recording music. Before his rap career took off, he had already made a few on-screen appearances to give himself some early experience in acting, such as the hit TV show Fame in 1983, the classic hit movie Breakin' in 1984, as well as the sequel which came out the same year, and in a low-scale movie called Rappin' in 1985. After all those TV and film appearances and putting in work on the music side, he would sign a deal with Sire Records after the label's president had heard his demo. In 1987, Ice-T would drop his debut album, Rhyme Pays. It had peaked at number 93 on the Billboard 200. Although it wasn't a commercial success at the time, Ice-T's second effort would prove to be a much better one. In 1988, he would quickly drop his second album, Power. It was critically acclaimed and a commercial success. It had peaked at number 36 on the Billboard 200 and went gold in 2 months. On this album, Ice-T had started a friendly beef with LL Cool J, dissing him on a track called I'm Your Pusher, which was the lead single off the album. The song did very well on the urban charts. LL Cool J would later respond to him a couple years later with a diss track of his own. That same year, Ice-T would put out a single called Colors, which was on the soundtrack for a movie of the same name. It had peaked at number 70 on the Hot 100, making it his first ever appearance on the chart. By the end of the decade, Ice-T would drop his third album, The Iceberg/Freedom of Speech, Just Watch What You Say. It had peaked at number 37 on the Billboard 200 and went gold in 6 months. The lead single, Lethal Weapon, did well on the rap charts and was able to chart overseas, nearly becoming a top 20 hit in New Zealand. After this, Ice-T would continue to remain relevant in the early 90s before going on a decline. At the same time and beyond, his acting career would continue to take off to new heights, although having not reached Hollywood status, but still enough to exceed the peak of his rap career. He would also voice act and appear in a few video games as well. Next up, we got the Sugar Hill Gang. Coming straight out of New Jersey, this group originally started off as a trio, consisting of Wonder Mike, Master G, and Big Bang Hank. This group played a key role in helping to break hip-hop music in the late 70s to a wider audience, and managed to do it independently with their own label, Sugar Hill Records. Their debut single, Rapper's Delight, had came out in the summer of 1979, and by the first quarter of 1980, it had become a top 40 hit, reaching number 36 on the Hot 100. Thanks to its musical blend of disco, rap, and funk, the song was also a major hit worldwide and was number 1 in 3 other countries. This would be included on their self-titled debut album, which dropped in February of 1980. The album was critically acclaimed and had also contained just 6 tracks. The following year, the group would keep things going with the release of their second album, Eighth Wonder, in 1981. It had peaked at number 50 on the Billboard 200, making it their first album to appear on the chart. The lead single of the same name reached number 82 on the Hot 100. The second single, Apache, reached number 53 on the Hot 100. In 1983, they would drop their third album, Rappin' Downtown, which failed to chart but had 3 charted singles, with songs like The Lover in You, The Word Is Out, and Kick It Live from 9 to 5, which had appeared on the urban charts. In 1984, the group would drop their fourth album, Livin' in the Fast Lane, which would be their last album of the decade. After this, the group would eventually drop one more album 15 years later. Over the years, the group lineups would change, expanding to 6 members before Big Bang Hank passed away in 2014. To this day, the group still does occasional performances on stage. Next up, we got Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5, a 6-man group from the Bronx, with Grandmaster Flash being the DJ/producer of the group. Backed up by 5 MCs by the names of Kid Creole, Melly Mel, Keith Cowboy, Scorpio, and Raheem. These guys were one of the early bird pioneers who also played a major part in the developmental stages of hip-hop music. They had first made a name for themselves in the late 70s by putting themselves out there by performing at local parties and live events. This would lead to them signing a deal with Sugar Hill Records. In 1980, they would release a single called Freedom, which did well on the urban charts and helped increase the group's popularity on a more wider scale. Then in 1982, they would drop their classic debut album, The Message. It had peaked at number 53 on the Billboard 200. The most popular song off the album shared the same name. The song would become their mainstream breakthrough, reaching number 62 on the Hot 100 and did well overseas, becoming a top 10, top 20 hit in Europe and nearly topping the New Zealand charts. Over the years, this song would be dubbed an old school hip-hop classic, being recognized as an early hip-hop anthem to contain socially conscious lyrics, talking about the struggles of inner-city poverty combined with its masterful production of an electro-funk type of beat for replay value, which at the time was very innovative in getting such a message heard. After this, the group would briefly split up over a royalty dispute between its members. They would go on hiatus for a few years. By then, Grandmaster Flash would put out 3 solo albums. The group would then reunite later on in the decade and drop their second album, On the Strength, in 1988, while signed to Elektra Records. The album didn't do as well as it had only peaked at number 189 on the Billboard 200 with no hit singles to show for it. This would be their last album. By this time, hip-hop had moved on from Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5, but over the years, their early contributions to the genre would not go unnoticed. In 2007, they would be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, becoming the first ever hip-hop act to accomplish that achievement. Next up, we got Sir Mix-a-Lot, coming from the West Side, but not California, instead from the state of Washington. While networking in Seattle and putting himself out there by hosting parties, he would meet up with a local radio DJ by the name of Nasty Nez Rodriguez. They would become partners and start up an indie label called Nasty Mix Productions in 1983. He would get to recording music and put out songs that would help get him heard outside of the parameters of Seattle. DJs across the US would start playing his songs in nightclubs and he would start touring in a few different states. This would lead to him signing a joint venture deal with Def American Recordings. In 1988, he would drop his debut album, Swass, or however you pronounce it. The album was a slow burner at first as it had taken some time for the sales to come. It had peaked at number 82 on the Billboard 200, went gold in 12 months, and went platinum a couple years after its release. Solely based off one hit single, which was called Posse on Broadway, the song had reached number 70 on the Hot 100, which was his first appearance on the chart. In 1989, he would quickly follow up with his second album, Seminar, which didn't really do as well as it had peaked at number 67 on the Billboard 200 and went gold in 6 months with lesser performing singles. After this, Sir Mix-a-Lot would reach his peak in the early 90s, having a huge resurgence with the all-time classic big booty-loving anthem, Baby Got Back, along with another platinum-selling album. A decade later, Sir Mix-a-Lot would retire from music, but is still keeping busy and is still actively doing shows. Next up, we got Kool Moe Dee, coming straight out of New York City, who's been mentioned as one of the most influential rappers from the old school era. Known for his aggressively fast rapping delivery and one of the first rappers to bring in the new jack swing sound to the genre. He had first started his career in a group called Treacherous 3, who had formed in the late 70s and released their first album by the mid-80s. Shortly after that, the group would split up and Kool Moe Dee would start to go solo and make a name for himself by himself. In 1986, he would drop his self-titled debut album. It had peaked at number 83 on the Billboard 200. The lead single off the album, Go See the Doctor, was his first ever charted single, reaching number 89 on the Hot 100, and it also charted in a few European countries. In 1987, he would quickly drop his second album, How You Like Me Now. It had peaked at number 35 on the Billboard 200, went gold in 6 months, and went platinum in 12 months, making it his most commercially successful album. The lead single of the same name was a diss track aimed at LL Cool J, starting a friendly rap beef with the fellow MC, claiming he stole his style from him. The song did well on the urban charts. The follow-up single, Wild Wild West, did even better, reaching number 62 on the Hot 100, becoming his highest charting single. By the end of the decade, Kool Moe Dee would drop his third album, Knowledge is King. It had peaked at number 25 on the Billboard 200 and went gold in 3 months. The most popular song off the album was the lead single, They Want Money, which nearly topped the R&B hip-hop singles chart. After this, Kool Moe Dee would start to flame out in the 90s. He would drop 2 more albums and then reunited with the Treacherous 3 for 1 more album. Next up, we got the DOC. Coming from Dallas, Texas, he had first started his career as a member of the Fila Fresh crew. The group had appeared on NWA's underground album, NWA and the Posse, which came out in 1987. Shortly afterwards, the Fila Fresh crew had split up, but the DOC would stand out and continue to work with NWA. He would then relocate from Dallas to Los Angeles. He would then sign to Ruthless Records. In 1989, he would drop his critically acclaimed solo debut album, No One Can Do It Better. It had peaked at number 20 on the Billboard 200 and went gold in 2 months. Songs like It's Funky Enough, The DOC and The Doctor, and The Formula all did well on the rap charts. After this, the DOC would unfortunately lose his naturally powerful rapping voice after getting into a near-fatal car accident. He had been driving under the influence and had fallen asleep at the wheel, causing his vehicle to veer off the freeway. While not wearing a seatbelt, he had gotten ejected from the driver's seat and had slammed face first into a tree. Fortunately, he would survive the crash and recover from his injuries, but his vocal cords were permanently damaged, leaving him with a now thin and raspy voice. This would put a dagger in his rap career. He would stay off the mic and continue writing for NWA and other rappers as the years went by. He had attempted a comeback in 1996 with his second album, Helter Skelter, but didn't do nearly as well since his voice no longer sounded anywhere near the same as it once did from his first album. Despite all that, the DOC wouldn't give up. He would still continue to rap, finding ways to adapt with his new voice. Next up, we got Too Short, a West Coast legendary MC from the Bay Area. He had started rapping at an early age. By the time he was in high school, he had dropped his debut album, Don't Stop Rapping, in 1983 at the age of 17 while signed to a local indie label called 75 Girls. The album was only released in the form of cassettes. He would drop 2 more albums with the label over the next 3 years. This would lead to him finally getting a record deal with a major label. He would end up signing with Jive Records. In 1987, he would drop his 4th album, Born to Mac, which served as his major label debut. This album would help give him some widespread underground exposure. This would be his first ever Billboard charting album, peaking at number 50 on the R&B hip-hop albums chart. By the end of the decade, he would drop his next album, Life Is Too Short. The album was critically acclaimed and would end up being his commercial breakthrough, peaking at number 37 on the Billboard 200, went gold in 4 months, and went platinum in 11 months. The lead single of the same name was his first ever charting song, peaking within the top 50 of the R&B hip-hop singles chart. After this, Too Short's career would continue to head in an upward trajectory. He would reach his peak in the 90s with 5 more platinum-selling albums. In the 2000s, he was still able to fit in, and up until now, he takes Don't Stop Rapping seriously as he continues to do shows and continues to put out more music. He had also dropped a new album in 2025. Next up, we got Whodini, a pioneering trio from Brooklyn that consists of Jaleel Hutchins, Drew Grandmaster D. Carter, and John Ecstasy Fletcher. This group was one of the very first hip-hop acts to gain some notoriety in the early 80s. Upon their formation, they were able to get a record deal, signing to Jive Records. In 1983, they would drop their self-titled debut album. The album had failed to chart in the US, but was able to chart in Germany, peaking at number 42 on the German albums chart. The album also had a few singles, which, although didn't do that well in the US, would end up doing well overseas in Europe and New Zealand, with songs like Magic's Wand, Haunted House of Rock, and Rap Machine. This would set the foundation for their future success. In 1984, they would quickly drop their second album, Escape. This would be their mainstream breakthrough, as it had peaked at number 35 on the Billboard 200 and went gold in 3 months. Over time, the album would end up going platinum 3 years after its release, making it their best-selling album. The lead single, Friends, would reach number 87 on the Hot 100, making it their first ever appearance on the chart. The follow-up single, Freaks Come Out at Night, did well on the urban charts. In 1986, they would drop their 3rd album, Back in Black. It had also peaked at number 35 on the Billboard 200 and went gold in 2 months. 2 of its singles, Funky Beat and One Love, were both major hits on urban radio, peaking within the top 20 of the R&B hip-hop singles chart. In 1987, they would cap off their 80s run with the release of their 4th album, Open Sesame. It had peaked at number 30 on the Billboard 200 and went gold in 4 months. Be Yourself was the only song that charted, doing well on the urban charts. After this, Whodini would leave Jive Records and sign with other labels, but they wouldn't have anywhere near the same commercial success in the 90s as they did in the 80s, putting out 2 albums that had flopped. But over the years, the group would get their flowers and receive hip-hop honors for their early contributions to the genre, etching their names in hip-hop history. Next up, we got UTFO. Also coming from Brooklyn, this 4-man group consisted of Dr. Ice, Educated Rapper, Kangol Kid, and Mixmaster Ice, with 2 of its members, Doc and Kangol, being a breakdancer duo prior to the formation of the group. They had first went by UFO, but the name was already taken by a British rock band, hence adding the T to the name. The name stood for Untouchable Force Organization. The group had formed in the early 80s and would take off in the mid-80s once they signed to Select Records. Within that time frame, they had also been a part of a historic hip-hop rivalry called the Roxanne Wars, becoming the first ever hip-hop battle to happen on wax. The beef involved a young teenage female rapper by the name of Roxanne Shante, who was a part of the Juice Crew. It had started from a dispute over a failed appearance at a radio promo show. Both sides would go back and forth with each other song for song. One of them by the group, which was the all-time classic Roxanne Roxanne, which had peaked at number 77 on the Hot 100. This would be their mainstream breakthrough and their biggest song ever. This would appear on their self-titled debut album, which came out in 1985. It had peaked at number 80 on the Billboard 200. In 1986, they would quickly drop their second album, Skeezer Pleaser. It had peaked at number 142 on the Billboard 200. Two of its singles, Fairy Tale Lover and Split Personality, both did moderately well on urban radio. In 1987, they would drop their third album, Lethal. This would end up being their highest charting album, as it had peaked at number 67 on the Billboard 200. The lead single, You're Cold Wanna Be With Me, would be their last ever charting song, as it had peaked within the top 50 of the urban charts. By the end of the decade, the group would drop their fourth album, Doin' It, which ended up being their lowest charting album, peaking at number 143 on the Billboard 200. The group would drop one more album in 1991 before their run came to an end. Next up, we got JJ Fad, an all-female West Coast hip-hop group from California, consisting of MCJB, Baby D, and Sassy C. Immediately following the emergence of Salt and Peppa, JJ Fad would become the first ladies of West Coast hip-hop. Through local connections, they were able to get a record deal, signing to Eazy-E's Ruthless Records. In 1988, they would drop their debut album, Supersonic. It had peaked at number 49 on the Billboard 200 and went gold in 2 months. The lead single of the same name reached number 30 on the Hot 100, already becoming their biggest song, and received a Grammy nod for Best Rap Performance, making them the first ever female hip-hop act to receive a Grammy nomination. After this, the group would immediately flame out, dropping one more album a couple years later which failed to chart. They would then split up indefinitely and leave the music industry behind. Decades later, the group would reunite and start to do shows together. And now, we head up north across the border with it. Next up, we got Maestro Fresh Wes, a Canadian hip-hop pioneer from the city of Toronto, who has been credited as the very first hip-hop act from out of the country to ever blow up. He had started rapping as a teenager in the early 80s under the name Melody MC, while a part of a rap group called Vision MCs. Their music had gotten promoted on the radio by a Toronto DJ he had met. A few years later, he would get in touch with a music promoter by the name of Farley Flex and would record some demos. He would make another connection by meeting with R&B singer Stevie B while performing on Much Music. He would help Maestro Fresh Wes get signed to his label, LMR. In 1989, Maestro would drop his debut album, Symphony in Effect. The album was a major success in his home country, peaking at number 4 on the Canadian Albums Chart and went platinum after selling 100,000 copies, making it the first ever Canadian hip-hop album to go platinum. Off the album was the all-time Canadian hip-hop classic hit single, Let Your Backbone Slide, which peaked at number 10 on the Canadian Singles Chart and was certified gold, making him the first ever Canadian rapper to have a gold single. The song had also made some underground noise in the US, peaking at number 14 on the American Billboard rap charts. This would eventually start a shift, as more Canadian hip-hop stars would begin to emerge over the years, with the likes of Dream Warriors, Rascals, Chaclair, Swollen Members, Chaos, Cardinal Official, Classified, Drake, Tory Lanez, Nav, and more. Thanks to Maestro Fresh Wes, the man who got the hip-hop party started up north. As for his career beyond the 80s, he would still enjoy some moderate nationwide success in the 90s before falling off. He would then move on to acting. Although he failed to cross over internationally, Maestro Fresh Wes has been celebrated as a Canadian hip-hop legend who birthed a generation of talent to flourish and take the Canadian hip-hop scene to new heights. He would then be inducted into the Canadian Music Hall of Fame, making him the first ever Canadian rapper to accomplish that achievement. And to end off the middle-class list, we got Monie Love. Coming out of the UK, she would become the first ever well-known British female MC. In her teenage years, she had moved to the States and would later settle in New York City to pursue a rap career. She would then network with other well-known rappers from New York to get her name across. This would help her get a record deal, signing to Warner Brothers. Although she would end up not dropping an album until the 90s, Monie was able to make a bit of noise in the late 80s with a couple hit singles. In 1988, she dropped her debut single, I Can Do This, which only did well in Europe, peaking at number 37 in her home country and within the top 20 of the Netherlands charts. In 1989, she would drop a follow-up single called Grandpa's Party, which was a top 20 hit in the UK and charted in Australia, New Zealand, and the Netherlands. By the early 90s, Monie Love's career would start to take off as she would finally release her debut album in 1990 and would have an international hit single that would cross over to the US. She would then drop one more album 3 years later. Eventually, she would end up moving on from rap and would start working as a radio host in the US. Chapter 3, The Underground. And to avoid making this video longer than it needs to be, I'ma just keep it short and sweet for this chapter. First off, we got MC Lyte, a female rapper who had started her career in the late 80s, would later become more known in the 90s. She would also have a successful career in acting and media. Africa Bambaataa, a DJ/producer known for his 1982 hit single Planet Rock. Roxanne Shante, who shined as a teenage sensation during the battle with UTFO. The Real Roxanne, who was another one of Roxanne Shantae's opponents in the battle. Rex and Effect, who started off as a three-man group in the late 80s, later continuing as a duo with the tragic death of one of its members. They would then blow up in the early 90s. Jazzo, who made some underground noise by the end of the decade and has been credited as an early mentor to a young and upcoming Jay-Z. Nucleus, who were able to have a mainstream hit in 1984 with a single called Jam on It. Queen Latifah, who started off in the late 80s, would then begin to ascend by the early 90s and then would become a Hollywood actress. MC Shan, who had put out a couple albums after the Bridge Wars by the end of the decade. The Ghetto Boys, who had started off in the late 80s, would then become popular in the 90s. Kool G Rap and DJ Polo, who had made a bit of underground noise in 89. La Trim, who had a minor hit single in 1988 called Cars with the Boom. World Class Wrecking Crew, which was the first group Dr. Dre was on prior to NWA. The Jungle Brothers, who had made a bit of international noise in the late 80s. Warp 9, who had made a bit of noise in the early 80s. And The New Style, a three-man group who started off in the late 80s, who would then turn into Naughty by Nature and then blow up in the 90s. Well, that concludes this deep dive into 80s hip-hop. You're the best for making it this far. And honestly, I'm glad I decided to do this because I really learned a lot while working on this video. Also, makes me wish I was born early enough to witness this era. So for you old heads, Gen Xers, and baby boomers, I hope I did a good job of taking you guys back. And for the youngins who weren't old enough to witness this, I hope you guys learned something new from this as well. Once again, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. More content and more deep dive videos on the way. Peace, y'all, and I'm out.
DJ 91.